I did eventually make it into at least, I would say, if not the top 10, then at least the top 20 constitutional lawyers who are currently practicing in the city. The advice that I always give young lawyers is less chatting, more reading. Very competent lawyers get heartbroken because the profession isn't paying very much or their name is not getting out there enough, and they eventually leave the legal profession. I was never a good student, but when I started with law, I don't know, something just happened and I spiraled out of control. That's when my career really started to grow out. Obviously, I had a lot of guidance, a lot of counsel over the years. So that sort of freedom, I think that sort of peace of mind, you get it after 5-6 years, but you eventually get it. And that is why I say this is one of the most rewarding professions that I can think of.
Assalamu alaikum, Barrister Ali Tahir. Thank you so much for being here. We're really happy to have you here, and we're really glad that you're on board with Career Crossroads.
Thank you very much for inviting me. You guys are doing great work.
Thank you.
And this is actually a service to the youngsters of this country. And I'll be there at any, any point in time to help them out.
Thank you. So just starting out, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey? And we all know that you're a barrister, you're a lawyer, but how did you get there? Like, when did you start? Since the start, did you always know that you wanted to be a lawyer? Was this always like your dream job?
Yes, so I always wanted to be a politician.
Okay.
And this was like a dream job from the very, early ages. Even when I was 8 or 9 years old,
Okay.
I was very interested in politics, which was, very surprising for a few people. It's such a young age to be discussing about presidents and prime ministers and so on and so forth. And it was in that connection that I understood that constitution and laws play a giant role in the state's governance. That is when I started to take interest into it. By the time I was done with my A levels, I decided that this was something that I wanted to do. And so I enrolled in a law program. I subsequently did very well. I was never a very good student. I was a B sort of a student. I always had a B grade. I was never a good student, but when I started with law, I don't know, something just happened and I spiraled out of control. I got a few distinctions. Thereafter, I then went for my bar. I then went for a master's in law. Once I was done, my younger sister, she followed my footsteps. She became a barrister as well. She is now working with the Omani government, and she's working one of the leading corporate law firms in London. The sister that's younger than her, then she followed the footsteps as well. And she became a barrister as well.
It was a spiral, everyone followed your family.
She works with human rights law. She's a member with the Sindh Human Rights Commission. And then there's a fourth sibling, that's a boy, and he's just completed his law degree.
Oh wow, so 4 lawyers in the family.
His exams are going on, so he's going to leave soon for his bar as well.
Okay.
So I think I inspired, what would say, a family of lawyers, so that there's 4 of us.
Okay.
3 of us have been called to the bar. We've broken our own record because we tied it when 2 siblings went to be called to the bar, and then we broke our own record when the third one went as well. And now we're going to break our record again when the 4th one goes.
That's great, mashallah.
So then I started in the very start. I actually went, and this was how your beliefs get to be formed in your own mind. I went to a very leading law firm. There was a big, great, huge, giant lawyer. I went in, put in a CV. I never heard back from him, even though I was interviewed and everything. And I was, very sad. My heart was broken. I thought maybe I'm not good enough. I always thought I was good enough. But, that really struck a chord with me. But I think a few weeks later, some students from SM Law College came and they said, you see, the Pakistan Bar Council is not taking our examinations, and because of that, our degree is getting delayed. I thought about it. I thought, why don't we file a writ? So I said, we can go to the High Court and we can file a writ. They said, sir, whatever, if you can help us out, whatever you do, just do it, because,
so
we were struggling.
So without working somewhere formally, you filed that petition
I filed that petition. And do you know who came from the other side, the Pakistan Bar Council side? This was the huge, giant lawyer that I wanted to work for.
Okay.
And, when he came in, I argued my part, he argued his part. I had a very good case, to be fair. This was the sort of case that a baby could win. And so we did end up winning that case. But what I realized was, while I was arguing on the podium, I realized that if things had worked out and I was working with him, there were like 5 other young lawyers my age standing behind him who were handing him the files and handing him the notes and telling him, okay, this is the book. And once the hearing was done and we won it, it's a reported judgment, I realized that everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's when my career really started to grow out. Obviously, I had a lot of guidance, a lot of counsel over the years. But I like to believe, at least for myself, that I did eventually make it into at least, I would say, if not the top 10, then at least the top 20 constitutional lawyers who are currently practicing in the city.
Oh, we know that, and that's great because you fought some really big cases, and you continue to fight them as we see every day. So, in terms of not following a formal path, let's say, when someone becomes a lawyer, we know a lot of people who get law degrees and then they are very lost because when they go for their first jobs, they're being paid 15,000, 20,000, and made to do all of this work. So obviously you followed a non-traditional path, but for someone starting out, what do you think is a path that they should follow, or like what approach they should take to getting a career or to making a career in law?
You see, Aisha, what I've done as well is that over the years, I was not formally working with people, but
Yeah.
I was in so far as in, a sort of a freelancer sort of work goes on, I was working.
Okay.
And I did realize that I was getting paid very less for the amount of work that I was actually putting in.
Okay.
So I remember one of these petitions that I drafted for the SECP. There was an insurance matter. The SECP has insurance jurisdiction under the insurance ordinance. I drafted it, I thrashed out all the material, took me 3 days. Ultimately, they paid me 15,000 rupees for it.
Okay.
And I knew that this lawyer who was actually going to argue the case that I had built,
Yeah.
he was charging in millions of rupees, right?
Okay.
Not even 1 million or 2 million, but millions of rupees. So I knew that this was going on, but I did realize that this was about face value. If I go somewhere and I tell them I could do this for like 5 or 6 lakh rupees, they're just going to laugh at my face because they do
Yeah.
understand I'm young and perhaps they won't trust me with it. So I knew my place at that time, but I worked the entire thing for him.
Okay.
Ultimately, I knew in my heart I'm not doing this for him. I'm doing this for myself, so
Okay.
that tomorrow I would know the ins and outs of how to do it. And so that worked for me. So when a new entrant gets into the profession, you are absolutely right. He might get paid 15, 20, 30. I might be guilty of it as well. If somebody comes in to join my office and they're at their very initial stages, I would give them somewhere between 30 and 40. I wouldn't give them more than that. But perhaps what they would need to understand at that stage is that they're not doing this for the money.
Yeah.
They're doing this for the exposure.
Yeah.
And they're doing this for the learning.
Okay.
And once they get these two assets ingrained,
Yeah.
perhaps it's a sort of an investment. That work in itself is an investment. Once you get a hold of it,
Yeah.
then obviously you're going to charge people at whatever you deem fit according to your own competence. And if your client thinks that you're competent enough, he's going to pay you for it.
True. So, you achieved all of this at a very young age comparatively when you see lawyers like fighting constitutional law cases or like representing ex prime ministers or ex presidents of Pakistan. We see that they definitely have been in the game for a lot longer than you have. So what are some things that worked for you in terms of building a career and gaining success, alhamdulillah, mashallah, at like such a young age?
I would say simply, and this is of course a niche area, so not everybody would understand it, but I would say I would not spend a lot of time at the bar room. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't really, go out, have coffee, just chit chat around, waste my time. Most of my time was spent on the desk, either reading the judgments that were coming in,
Yeah.
or otherwise reading textbooks. And
Okay.
then, I would draft my own versions as well. I would draft opinions, I would draft my own understanding of those areas. Ultimately, I started to get published as well.
Okay.
So I was published in a number of leading newspapers, and that thing really actually paid me back. So
Okay.
I know for certain that today, when I woke up in the morning,
Yeah.
I knew that there were 5 new judgments that had come out.
Yeah.
And I know for a fact that by the end of the day, I'm going to read all of them.
Okay.
So I know how things are going on. I think what really matters for a lawyer is the work that he can put in.
Yeah.
You see, I'll give you an example with regard to, let's say, a sport, let's say cricket. It's never about natural talent for me. That's what I believe. It's all about how much you can practice.
Okay.
So if you're spending 10 hours in the net on a certain day,
Yeah.
and I'm spending 30 minutes, you're going to get better than me. There's no question about it.
Yeah.
That person who's putting in 10 hours is going to get better than me. So
That's
I think
true.
what really helped me out, and the advice that I always give young lawyers, is less chatting, more reading. The more you read, the more concepts you grasp, and then you start understanding the system. Because when a judge writes a judgment, you get to know everything about that judge.
Yeah.
You get to know what he thinks about, you get to know what sort of cases he would provide relief in, you would get to know his psychology, and I think that is very, very, very important.
Okay. So there's generally two paths that young lawyers, when they get their law degree, follow. Either they go and work for an established firm, like, do that for like 5 6 years, and then get to a point, and eventually when they're older, make partner, or like whatever that pathway is. And then there's something that you did, which is, again, obviously you worked alongside people, but you built up your own brand, your own personal just practice in on its own. So what do you think will help someone decide whether they're meant for A or B? Like, this path or that path. Like, who is someone who is an ideal candidate to, like, let's say, go and work somewhere and then establish that career, or who's someone who needs to focus on building their own brand? What do you
I
think,
think
sir?
I would always be in favor of the second one, the latter one. I think it is very important to get yourself out there.
Okay.
Law firms, unfortunately, and this is going to, cut me a bit of grass here, but law firms generally in Pakistan are very exploitative.
Okay.
So you will work a lot for them, but they would not give you the sort of exposure that they should. So you
Okay.
will do all the research, you will do all the drafting, but when it comes to the big meeting, you
Yeah.
won't be sitting there. And
Okay.
that's of no point at all. So even if you're working with a law firm, and I do understand that there are people who are scared of starting on their own,
Yeah.
although I'll tell them don't be scared of this, because it always works out.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, if you are at a firm where you're working on a case, make sure that you get that exposure as well.
Okay.
So you get your face out there. People should know that this was done by Ali or by Aisha or by Harim or Afzal or whatever one's name may be. But your name should always be there. And if your name is not getting there, if it's not floating out, this is not going to get you anywhere. You're just wasting all your hard work.
Yeah.
It would be 100 times better to work as a freelancer, where lawyers do know that, okay, this is the person who can really get things done for me.
Yeah.
I don't have time, so I'm just going to give it to him. At that position, you are in a much, much, much better position to bargain and to negotiate and tell them, okay, I'll do this for you, but these are my certain conditions. I don't mind how much money you pay me, but my name should be out there. It should be on the plaint, it should be on the petition, it should be
Yeah.
on the wakalatnama, so on and so forth.
Okay.
And this, I think, is very important for a young lawyer
Okay.
to understand. A lot of very, 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 and I've seen this happen before my very eyes, very competent lawyers get heartbroken because the profession isn't paying very much,
Yeah.
or their name is not getting out there enough,
Okay.
and they eventually leave the legal profession.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart to see that happen.
Yeah.
But I think at the initial 5 or 6 years of your professional career in law, and I speak specifically about law, you should never be after the money. You have to survive somehow if you want to survive in this profession.
Okay.
You should always be after whether your name and your face is getting out there or not.
Okay, that makes sense. So, for someone who is getting into this field now, do you think it's very saturated? There's too many lawyers in Pakistan and they should not pursue it? Or if, let's say, they're looking for success, it's hard to achieve it now that we see a lot of these universities affiliated with international universities pop up all across the country? Or do you think there's a lot of scope still in Pakistan for someone who wants to stay here and practice? Because I've always heard that, if you want to practice law, you should not do it in Pakistan, you should do it elsewhere. And you've gone to other countries and fought cases and been a part of those hearings. So what is your take on the idea that if someone wants to stay in Pakistan and practice law, is it a lucrative career still? And then if someone wants to, let's say, your siblings, they settle abroad or they're practicing law abroad, if they want to do that, is it still possible to do it while studying or getting your LLB in Pakistan and then moving further?
Okay, so Aisha, I think there's a three-prong question, and I'd like
Okay.
to, cut it out into three
Yeah, yeah.
parts, and then answer is the first one is, does the profession pay in Pakistan better than the US or the UK or Canada? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
You're gonna earn in dollars and pounds there. It's obviously going to pay you better there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. But comparatively, when you look at it, that's true of all the fields there
Yeah.
are. So cricketers in the UK would get paid more than cricketers
Yeah.
in Pakistan.
Yeah.
But if you ask somebody whether they'd be a cricketer in the UK or in Pakistan, I think they would always choose Pakistan, because the fandom that comes with it
Yeah.
is of a far greater nature, and eventually you actually end up earning a lot more money than you
Yeah.
would in the UK. So obviously, you're always going to, earn more in foreign countries, and there's also a scope for you to go and practice law there, especially for young practitioners who would like to start there. They can easily make it there by sitting for the, let's say, for example, if you're talking about the US, you sit for the NY bar exam and you can very easily get into the field there. But this was a personal choice for me. I did not want to leave Pakistan.
Okay.
I've always dreamt of being in Pakistan. I travel a lot. It's
Yeah.
one part of my personality. So I'm always traveling, but I would like for my home to always be in Pakistan. So it was a personal choice. But otherwise, yes, the profession would pay better outside. Now the second one, is the market saturated, or is there a
Yeah.
lot of scope? Yes, there are a lot of lawyers. There's a lot of lawyers, but very few competent lawyers.
Okay.
So the most of the people who are coming into the market, they're not going to stay. And I've been seeing this for the last decade.
Okay.
People come in, people stay for 6 months, 1 year,
Yeah.
2 years, and then they realize this is not for them,
Yeah.
because this is a profession that requires a lot of discipline, a lot of work. Sometimes you can't get 8 hours of sleep in the night. Sometimes you just don't get any sleep in the night.
Yeah.
You do realize there are other factors of your life which start missing out. So you might have to stop going to the gym very regularly, or going to your sprints, or whatever you do. Your hobbies start getting affected. Your family time starts getting affected.
Okay.
That is 100% true. But the point is, if you sustain for a little bit,
Yeah.
this is by far one of the most rewarding professions that I can think of.
Okay.
And I do know of my friends who've gone into other professions. If you compare the remuneration that they would get for the same day's work,
Yeah.
and a lawyer, even a mediocre lawyer would get for the same day's work,
Yeah.
it's difference of leaps and bounds. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
It's, to be very honest, sometimes it's just unbelievable.
Okay.
So, once your name is out there and you're doing good work, you are going to make it.
Okay.
So I think there's a lot of scope in the market.
Okay.
There are less lawyers than are
Yeah.
required.
Yeah.
The ones who would actually go in and work and do everything.
Okay.
Of course, there are a lot of lawyers in the sense of there being political lawyers, and lawyers who are lawyers for the pressure point, or
Yeah.
lawyers who are doing khula cases, or
Lawyers
otherwise.
lawyers for just for the sake of being lawyers.
I mean, yes, and there's Karachi is a huge city.
Yeah.
It's a huge city. So you need, you need people to get khulas done, to get nikah namas done, to get court marriages done, so on and so forth. But then these cases don't pay a lot anyway.
Yeah.
The cases that pay a lot are other, multi-million dollar transactions. And I think once you get to work on that,
Yeah.
there is a lot of scope, and we perhaps do not have the same sort of human resource
Yeah.
that a country as big as Pakistan should.
Okay.
I could, if I would to count the number of firms, I could count them on my fingers.
Okay.
The ones that are actually doing that sort of work.
Okay.
Most of them are from Karachi, by the way,
Okay.
which is a very proud thing for Karachitis. But you can actually just count them on your fingers, and you
Yeah.
can say, okay, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, this is 4, this is 5. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no other people who are doing that sort of work. So there's a lot of scope if you come in, and I think that anybody who says that the market is too saturated, they're lying, or they do not know anything about the profession.
Okay.
Anybody who's reading law right now,
Yeah.
I would tell them to come in. Of course, now coming to the third prong, all of these UOL universities and institutions where
Yeah.
people are coming in, the quality you see that is coming in is
Yeah.
actually very bad
Okay.
right now. So most of the people who are coming in, they don't really have an idea of how the profession really works, because what the norm has become, you go in, you rote learn the answers,
Yeah.
then you know produce them verbatim in
Yeah.
the examination, and of course you get a pass out of
Yeah.
it, but then at the end of the day you do not have understanding. So when you have to apply that concepts
Yeah.
to the facts at hand, you can't do it very well. And that is one of the reasons that people who are coming in
Yeah.
with this sort of intellectual ability, where they can actually learn concepts
Yeah.
and then apply those concepts to the facts at hand, they do very well for themselves. The
Okay.
5 6 years, the initial 5 6 years are very hard, but then everything starts coming together
Yeah.
in place. And the good thing about this profession at that stage is, just like I was telling you, when you start, you do not have time.
Yeah.
But once you've started and you're stable, you have a lot of time at your hands, and
Okay.
you act like a king. So you know that it's not a 9 to 5. You can
Okay.
go to gym at 9 in the morning. You can go swim at 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's your choice. You get your own dates. You get your own times.
Yeah.
You make your own schedule, when I'm going to argue this, when I'm not going to argue this, if there's an urgent matter tomorrow,
Yeah.
if it's paying me the sort of thing where I would like to interfere with my schedule, I would.
Yeah.
Otherwise, thank you very much, go to somebody else.
So
So
you're.
that sort of freedom, I
Yeah.
think, that sort of peace of mind, you get it after 5 6 years, but you eventually get it. And that is why I say this is one of the most rewarding professions that I can think of.
Okay, so essentially you're saying that you have to put in that effort in the initial 4 or 5 years, and it might not pay you enough. But once you are over that specific period and you've created a name for yourself, you get the rewards that
Yeah,
you often
absolutely,
see. Like
absolutely.
you see TV shows glorifying this profession, and you see lawyers having like a very interesting lifestyle that often a lot of us want to achieve. So like you're saying that once people put in those hours, put in that effort, they'll eventually get there even while being in Pakistan, correct?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a very rewarding profession.
And then just it brings me to my question with Career Crossroads and Barrister Ali Tahir, that if someone it gets in touch with you, if an aspiring lawyer gets in touch with you through Career Crossroads, what sort of advice would you have for them? What can they look forward to? Let's say they're starting out early in their career and want to build a name for themselves in this field.
Well, it depends on what they're looking for.
Okay.
If somebody wants to be in litigation,
Yeah.
and that's the career path that I took, and he
Yeah.
wants to be at the high court, he does not want to go to the district courts, he wants to focus on constitutional cases, on administrative cases, and especially if he likes to fight the government, that is
Yeah.
something that he's interested in. I would have very specific advice for them.
Okay.
There's general advice. You read a lot of constitutional case law. You start understanding the psychology of the judges, of the
Yeah.
judicial system, but then at the same time you need exposure as well. So you need to know what are the sort of issues that generally arise
Yeah.
in these sort of cases. Just to uh, give you a very blunt answer, I'll give you my own personal example. When I first started out, I wanted a domicile for myself. So I went to meet the deputy commissioner at that time. I lived in phase 4, so this was DC South. I went in there, he said, your permanent address is from Lahore. I said, that's not my fault. This was my grandfather's property.
Yeah.
If that address is there, how is it my fault? A
Yeah.
domicile and a PR is something very different.
Yeah.
When he said, sorry, I can't issue it to you unless you go back and get this address changed.
Yeah.
I said, sir, I'm a barrister. I've just recently come back. He said, okay, whatever you are, I don't care.
Yeah.
He was a bit rude, not in the same way that
Yeah.
I said. He was actually very rude. So I thought, okay, what should we do about it? So I went there, asked the senior lawyer, Mr. Salim Ansari. He said, go on, file a writ. So I made a writ.
Yeah.
That very night I drafted it. We filed it in the morning. Within 7 days, the DC was ordered to bring in this domicile, and I got
Yeah.
my domicile.
Yeah.
Now, this is one of the least complicated areas of the
Yeah.
law. But if you understand how many people are going through the same problem, you would be dumbfounded. I've received at least 10 calls in the last 6 months with people having the exact same
Same
problem, where they say, okay, we can't issue it, although the law is very clear. If you've lived at a place for 3 years, you're going to get the domicile and the PRC
Yeah.
for that very area. So you see that sort of exposure on how administrative bodies act, that is very important as well. So it, that advice has to be specifically tailored
To
to
the
what
person.
the individual's idea in mind is, and then you proceed on to that. And obviously you can give them a lot of advice, but ultimately they'll have to come into the career. You
Yeah.
see, I can go on for hours on how to play football, but
Yeah.
somebody who's never played it won't get an idea unless he gets into the field and start kicking the ball himself.
Yeah.
So these are certain concepts that perhaps you just cannot explain in that same fashion.
And I think that's why we are very lucky to have you on board. So that someone who gets in touch with you will get, like, the hands-on experience, and, like, will get to hear about your journey and then be able to sort of mold their own depending on that. So we're very thankful that you're on board and that you're with the panel on Career Crossroads. And then I'm so hopeful that once people do get in touch with you, they'll have a better understanding of just practicing law in Pakistan and, like, how you shaped your journey. So thank you so much for being here and having this conversation with us. It really means a lot to us that you took out the time, and we really hope that people are able to learn the same way that I've learned a lot of things during this conversation
No, but
from you.
I'll disagree with you a little
What?
bit. I am the lucky one to be with Career Crossroads. I
Thank you
consider
so much.
myself lucky.
Thank you so much.